I'm Andy Kindler. Don't be alone with Jay Kogan. It's not a horrible thing, but it's unpleasant.
Don't be alone with Jay Kogan.
Hi, and welcome to Don't Be Alone with Jay Kogan. I'm Jay Kogan, which should not be a surprise to you because the title of the show has my name right in it. I'm glad that you're here. I would like to invite you to please write to me at dbawjk@gmail.com with your comments, your suggestions, your compliments, your criticisms, and especially a question for my guests. I need them, and I would give you credit for them. I would like to remind you to please subscribe to the show, write a review to the show, pass it along to a friend, just one friend. The word of mouth of the show would be spectacular. I'm already getting a lot of great feedback. The show is growing leaps and bounds every month. And so thank you for watching. Thank you for telling your friends. And none of this is funny, but all of it is true. But today we have a funny show for you because a friend of mine is coming to talk with me about anger. For my entire life, I've been afraid of anger. I've been afraid of fights, afraid of getting people angry at me. I'm not the person to complain about anything to anyone unless it's dire or unless I'm doing it for someone else. For me, I leave it be. So why? Well, not because I'm such a sweet guy, but because I think I'm a little afraid of fighting. And I don't want to be a guy who's afraid of fighting. I want to be a guy who can stand up for himself and be true to his emotions and be real and be authentic. And I'm going to talk to my friend Andy Kindler today. Very funny comedian, has been on the comedy scene for many, many years. And he is famous in our circles for being a guy who's quick to be angry. He likes being angry. He has been angry. I think he's working on trying to not be so angry. But we're going to hear about anger, his relationship with anger, and I'm going to learn how to be more angry if I feel angry. How it's okay to be Jay Kogan. So we'll hear more from Andy right after this.
Don't be alone with Jay Kogan.
Andy Kindler, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
This is officially welcoming you to Don't Be Alone with Jay Kogan. Let me start here.
You do it.
What happened when you fell down? You just fell down. You're telling me you fell down.
Right.
And you showed me a picture of yourself falling down, and
Yes.
it looked rough and ragged.
Well, I don't want to turn this into a comedy bit, but I'm going to use the word peripheral neuropathy.
Okay.
I know that's hilarious.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. Yeah.
Okay. I have type 2 diabetes. I've had it for as long as I've had it. And
We give a prize out to everybody who has type 2 diabetes.
it's not, is it sugar
candy.
free?
Yeah, it's candy. No, it's candy.
Sugar. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and of course, I walk, of course. I pride myself, I walk 3 miles a day. I've been fighting it. I got metformin. But peripheral neuropathy is probably from the diabetes, although I have to go and get it confirmed by a neurologist. But the point is that once I go, I cannot stop. In other words, I hit a little thing in the pavement that preceded a downward wheelchair ramp, and I cannot stop. In other words, I can maybe when I get to the ground,
your brain won't let you stop.
That's what is supposedly the cause of it. Now I'm in PT. They put me on like one of these balance boards where, like, I try to, when you fall, you try and catch yourself, but it's probably never going to get back to what it was.
Okay.
Which was, Olympic style.
Sure. You were very famously an athlete.
I was in the low hurdles. People don't remember the low hurdles.
You're one of the few who went under.
People don't remember the low hurdles.
No, they don't know the low hurdles.
They were like so, anybody could hump above them.
Sure, yeah.
But it seemed fun to me.
Right, sure. That was good, the low hurdles. They were little bumps.
Don't they call them high hurdles?
I don't think they just call them hurdles.
Okay.
They're just hurdles.
You don't know the hurdles I've been through, Jay.
Steeplechase.
Oh, that to me is the stupidest thing. That to me is like the miniature golf of Olympic events. Why don't you have them go through a windmill if you're going to have them go into water?
That is a great Andy Kindler moment, always.
I think so.
Now, which always hovers over the idea of what's funny, always funny, but also like, I'm going to touch the touchstone of hack and then make fun of it.
Yes, because I do believe that there is within me a Catskill style comedian.
Right.
So and some of my jokes are stupid jokes,
right?
But I love them,
right?
So like, so the thing is, I admit the hackiness that resides within me.
Sort of. I think you fight it. In other words, I think you don't want to. I think the last thing you want to be is considered a hack.
That's for sure.
And you don't want to be considered a hack. But when you enter into the realm of hacky,
Yes.
you do your very best to mark it as hack and then push it away. But we can still laugh at it on the way as we're being pushing it away.
Right. And also, I am a deconstructivist.
Yes.
I mean that. But you say this. I can't be. This is not what I am. I'm a comedian, just like you're a comedian. But this is the style, and the style came from anger and rage.
Yes.
And it took me years and years and years to adjust to the fact I wanted to make fun of Carrot Top and have him love me. I wanted to make fun of all. It took me a long time to realize that's not possible.
No, it's not possible. Well, this is why you're here. This is exactly why you're here. Don't Be Alone with Jay Kogan is all about me bringing in people to solve my problems.
I can do it, Jay.
Okay. And so my problem this week that I want to talk to you about is how I deal with anger. So my anger is usually very suppressed. My anger is deeply on the inside. I think if I was angry at you, you probably wouldn't know it.
Wow.
And
because you come across, I don't mean come across, you're the sweetest guy in the world.
Well, but even sweet people get angry. What do they do with their anger?
Well, they don't. Well, in your case, what do you do?
Well, I sublimate it. I eat food to not feel the anger. Sometimes I will. I make incredible excuses for people. And make stories in my head about why that person acted that way.
Wow.
And excuse them.
So that you don't get angry. So
correct.
You get off of the anger.
Correct. Whereas you, my friend, you're angry. You get angry. And I know you're trying to be less angry as time goes on.
Right, because I don't think that my anger necessarily, I never had a good relationship to what was going on. I didn't understand. I thought
you think your anger was unjustified?
No, it had to. I tried to make it justified. So I had to make Jay Leno evil.
Right.
Otherwise, why am I doing jokes as opposed to, well, it's kind of a roast.
Right.
So the thing is so interesting what you're talking about, because I just audio booked the John Sarno book, right?
Fantastic.
Yes, and I had the horrible back problems.
Right.
I don't ever believe I may have pain.
You will never have back problems again.
No, I will have pain maybe,
right.
But I will realize there's nothing structurally wrong.
That's right.
So his theory is that rage that you're keeping down,
right,
you can't keep it down.
Or other emotions.
Right,
that's right. And I read that book 30 years ago.
Did you have back problems?
I did.
And you have none since then?
Never since then.
It's unbelievable. It's a miracle.
Never since then. So I'm obviously taking that anger that I was suppressing and putting it in my back pain and channeling it somewhere else, because I'm still not angry. Like I can do the Sarno exercise. If you don't know the book we're talking about, it's called Healing Back Pain, and it is fantastic. And what it does is it describes, the first half is basically what true back pain is about.
Right.
He's a surgeon, and he says there are real back issues. He said, but most of his patients at the time he was writing the book would come to him and he couldn't detect what the problem was, and eventually had a conversation with them, and some of them started crying and saying, this is my life and it's so horrible, and they would leave feeling better. And he said, I'm a doctor. I can figure this out. Let's talk about our problems out loud, bring them to the front of our head, and maybe acknowledge that the back pain you're feeling isn't based on back pain.
Mind body.
Yeah.
Mind body. That's
fantastic.
Like, it's absolutely fantastic.
Okay, so let's talk about how comfortable you are or were with anger, and why that was like a go-to position for you. Because I remember you had feuds, and still do sometimes, with people.
Yes, absolutely.
In the industry, people on Twitter, people on the internet.
Twitter is the worst. The Twitter was the worst. If people saw my behavior on Twitter, they go, well, this guy is just a terrible person.
Right.
But it's not true. I just would get very personally upset by people.
Right.
And it could still happen tomorrow. But it doesn't usually, because I'm aware of it.
But you're a very nice person. See, that's the thing is, if you know you, and you should meet you because you're very nice.
I've heard that I'm a great conversationalist.
You're a very nice guy, but I do notice that you do take on a lot of like that guy and that person and that,
Well, I'll just take it even with Trump.
Yeah.
I mean, I could get almost paralyzed by the thought of him coming back.
Right.
And I have to learn through therapy that I am turning it into my problem, because I'm believing I'm responsible for the world, or the world is only good when my president is in.
Right.
You know?
Right. They love getting under your skin like that.
Sure.
So that your reaction is what they're after. Like, this guy's great. Instead of the thing they hate, which is, isn't he weird?
Yes. My father, had a bad experience with Trump, and this is an absolute true story.
Yeah.
My father was in business, gas heating business.
Yep.
And he serviced Trump's building, and then Trump wouldn't pay him.
Right, of course.
Okay, so here's what we did as a birth, and so thank God, and I have said this many times, thank God my dad did not live to see Trump become president. But once as a birthday present, we got my dad. We thought it'd be funny because he hates Donald Trump to get him Art of the Deal, the board game, right? So we give it to him, and he's like, "This is terrible." I go, "But you hate him." And then next time you're like, "Of course, what kind of a stupid thing was that?"
Right. You got to remember that it's just bringing up sad emotions.
Most of my problems, many of my problems, I love my father. He was the funniest guy in the world. My mother was severely depressed. But most of my things almost always go back to, like, I personally believe in a God now. I used to not or whatever, and I don't even necessarily, I hesitate to even say it.
If you believe in a God, you got to say it.
I do believe in God.
Okay, but why? What changed your mind?
It's not with Ricky Gervais where he goes, "Oh, you believe in some kind of a space copter?" No, but I believe in this feeling of that there is something about us that never goes away, and that you can connect to this joy.
Right.
And when I was 14 years old, my dad was my hero, and I loved him, and he was my hero. I was starting to get into like hypnotism or stuff like that, and he said, "I don't like you getting into this type of stuff."
Couldn't you hypnotize him out of that feeling? What happened to that?
No, because I never learned hypnotism.
Okay,
but two things. One thing was that and I love you, Dad, but he made me feel stupid. I felt stupid.
Right.
Because he was very smart, so we would talk about nuclear stuff, or we talk about, and he'd go, "You know what? You don't know enough, really, to be able to have this conversation." And so all of these arguments, my anger at new atheists, and all of these people were all me replaying
your father,
and actually believing I'm stupid.
Okay.
So
all right,
I believe, the belief that I'm stupid doesn't go away, but I know that it's not true.
Okay. Well, you're 67 years old.
Yeah.
It took a while to get here.
Yes, it took me a long, long time to get here. It took me to age 50 to get treated for my ADHD, because my father goes, "Your mother went to therapy for 25 years. Look what that did."
All right.
Right?
Yeah, right. Now, I read this, I didn't know this about you, and it could be not true, that your mom was a Quaker?
This is the other. He's like leading me from a pre-interview. My mother, when I was 16, she converted, because a lot of Jews are self-hating Jews.
Sure.
She was a self-hating Jew.
Right.
And when I ask people, they go, "What do you mean self-hating Jew?" I say, "Come down to the temple, Beth Shalom, where I spent my 5 years."
Right.
She converted, and she just had that. She related somehow to Jesus, but it wasn't even Jesus. It was the Friends, the Quaker Friends.
Yes.
You don't even have to believe in God to be a Quaker. In fact, one of the jokes about standard jokes is, "Oh, some of my best Quakers are Jews."
Right.
Right?
So if you're so angry that you're angry at yourself, and then you're angry at Donald Trump, and you're angry at Jay Leno, and you're angry at Doug Benson, or whoever else you're angry at. Who are you angry? List 10 people you're angry at.
Adam Sandler would be the main person. I tried to let that grudge go, but I can't really let it go. Ricky Gervais is big.
Right.
I'm not, because I hate so many people. I have to have, I can't just pull them out.
On your podcast that I listen to, which I'm regularly listening to.
I cannot, it makes me so happy that Jay listens. Thought Spiral.
Which I listen to, and your partner, Josh, has been on this show.
Yes.
And although we haven't aired it yet.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll do back-to-back.
That would be good. That would be nice.
But I can't get enough of it. Although I miss the questions from the internet.
Well, now he's bringing them back a little bit.
Well, that's fantastic. One of the great things about you, no one can ever say you're not authentic.
I think that is true.
And that is one of the great things to being on a podcast or being a comedian.
Is there a studio audience? I mean, you see going out to somebody.
There is a studio audience. We keep them in the next room. I don't like to be with them.
They can hear you, though. They can hear you,
I know, but they're like, imagine my fans. You don't want to be in the same room with my fans. But no, it's you're very authentic. The show is listen, it's not a short show.
No.
It's not for everyone. It's a bit of a long podcast,
slog.
but I enjoy it. It's not a slog because I enjoy it. It's filled with little musical bits, and I just like the camaraderie between you and Josh, and it's lovely.
Because I think that's what we're looking. This is like kind of this is a weird thing. It's like my concept of home. I was always leaving home. I was always obsessed with it. And I think ultimately your home or God or whatever is with you all the time. So when you're in the car, what I'm looking for is connection,
Right.
And to see. And so if it's two people and they're having a great group,
Right.
and so that's all. I used to say I hated plot, I hate stories. It's not that I hate stories. I hate specific, this goes to this, goes to this. But I love story. I went here today, they didn't have this. I'm upset about this in the paper.
I'm confused because that is a story. I hate story, but I love story.
No, I hate that they have to be a middle. What did they say? Beginning, middle, and end.
Yeah.
Right. So I always thought I had nothing to do with story. I just like personality. That's not it. I like little stories that people are telling about themselves or whatever.
People are connecting, but those little stories also have a beginning, middle, and an end.
Yeah, but like, let's say the movie Diner is like one of my favorite movies.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm just saying there's a kind of a, not stream of consciousness, but there's a kind of a artistic thing that it's not about whether Mickey Rourke ends up as a thing. It's a slice of life.
It's more of a slice of life.
There's more of a slice of life.
There's a wedding. There's a small wedding story that's going on in the background.
And probably not my favorite part.
And the four friends, are they going to remain the whole story is about four friends. Are they going to remain who
Steve
they are forever?
will have a good career, they talk about a lot.
That's right.
Will he be someone that people love, or will they get annoyed with him? And
Paul Reiser is coming on this show.
You know, Paul Reiser and I went to the same college. Can you please tell him that again? Binghamton. He's not impressed when I met him and said, hey, we went both. And I said,
would you be impressed with people who went to Binghamton?
No, it's not so much that. It's like Carol Leifer went there too. No, it's not the school.
Yeah.
It's the camaraderie. We went to the same college together.
Yeah, I went to UCLA. Nobody cares.
Yeah, but UCLA is the biggest school
It's
in the
gigantic.
world.
And nobody cares.
Mine was 5,000
Yeah,
people.
nobody cares. Show business, particularly, does not care when you went to college. They don't care when you went to school. They don't care. Which is very disappointing for a lot of my Harvard friends who went to Harvard, because nobody cares.
The fact that I would get so angry about these things and argue, I don't think that was that healthy.
Probably not. Listen, I don't fight. As you can tell, like, I'm not a big fighter about these kind of things, and I don't care. I do like to. If there's a non-truth, if somebody's under a misapprehension, I'm happy to sort of step in and say, just so you know, these are the facts of the case.
Right.
Make your own decision. Well, people are entitled to their opinion.
The thing is, I was always scared of getting beaten up. So like the thing that happened with Gavin Polonus, I thought he was going to punch me in the face.
Right.
So that's something you may not, I go, whoa, you're not that much taller than me, but you may not have my whole life I was horribly scared about getting into a fight and thinking that I wasn't a man unless I could fight. And so I learned in therapy that that's ridiculous.
Most of us got into comedy to avoid fighting.
Absolutely.
Most of us did. I felt like I could roam with the toughest guys on earth as long as I kept them entertained.
But you weren't scared though, right?
No.
Because and you're not scared in your regular life.
Because I thought I could. I probably stupidly think I could work my way out of this. I could buddy up to people. I could find a connective tissue to make sure that they don't knife me. I'm all right.
Good. I'm very impressed. See, a lot of the things that you're doing are, I think, working. I think that there may be that you think that are you too controlled?
Yes, but here's the thing. Here's what I'm afraid: if I get into a screaming match about something, and feelings arise that people are going to hate me.
I think the answer is you're right.
Why aren't you afraid of people hating you when you argue
Yes,
with
I am.
them?
But let's take the joke. My favorite joke I've ever written, which was, who died and made Jim Belushi a big star?
Okay.
Right. So whatever, if that came from rage or it came from whatever,
right,
that is gifts from God. Okay. It doesn't mean that if Jim Belushi meets me, he's going to, but you can't say that I'm only going to do comedy that never has the old bazoom-do.
Right.
So, but in an interpersonal way, I don't think getting to the point where you're yelling and screaming.
But what if you met what if Jim Belushi walked in here right now and sat down and you said and he started talking to you and he was mad. He was upset at that joke because what's wrong with me? I did my best. I did the very best I could. I had a very famous brother, arguably more talented, and yet I struggled to do the very best I could.
I would say to him, is he going to punch me?
Well, I'm saying he's mad because you've been insulting him for 25 years with this joke.
Well, this is the thing too. I never would go up to people and say it to them.
I know, but Jim Belushi, for example, I can say that Jim Belushi is a very horrible guy. I think from what I hear about him, not a great guy. And so, and I have personal stories of people who worked on the Jim Belushi show and all that. I can back it up a little bit, but even so, I wouldn't get into a public feud, although I guess I'm doing it right now on this show with Jim Belushi, because it's like, what's the point?
Well, because your humor doesn't depend on it.
No, it doesn't.
So that's the thing. And so I have to make the choice. Like one time this is a story I'll never forget. I was making fun of I don't even remember his name. He was a comedian and he would get upset about everything. He'd go, I went in to get a paper today and the paper machine didn't work, right? So I made fun of him.
Was it Jerry Seinfeld?
No, it wasn't.
Right.
But I made fun of him on stage.
Yeah.
And he came up to me at a party. He goes, why are you doing that to me?
Right.
And I had to say to myself, why am I doing that to him?
Right.
So I don't think there's a black and white thing about it.
But that's the thing. You had to step in and remind yourself, hey, maybe I shouldn't attack this guy in public because it's going to hurt.
Or on stage.
Or on stage.
Well, public is stage.
I meant on stage. Because maybe it's hurting the damage it's doing or the hurt that it's causing isn't worth the laugh. Right? In
that case, this is exactly what I said. Because he's a new guy and he's trying.
Right.
So why am I getting upset with him?
Right.
But not Jay Leno.
Right.
So part of my reasoning, I think, is based on no, Jay Leno should know what hack is at this point.
Right.
And he's a big name, so he gets to be made fun of.
Well, Jay, let's talk about Jay for a second. So Jay Leno, when we were coming up, was he was a great comic. One of the best comics of all time. Sharp, funny, insightful. He could make instant jokes for the night and be super, super smart and super funny.
Yes.
And then he went on TV and decided, I'm going to smartly, I think, aim
low.
Well, aim medium. Aim right in the center. He's not going to be controversial. He's just going to be pleasant. He's going to change it up for the medium he's in, which is
Why
the Tonight
do you say
Show.
Smartly? Because he was successful at it?
He was incredibly successful at it.
But that's not success to me.
All right. But I mean,
because Letterman he'll never be Letterman because of that. But that's my anger again. Why am I angry? But I don't have anger towards Jay Leno anymore. I used to have tremendous anger because I feel like...
Have you buried the hat? Have you written Jay a note?
Well, do you know that we had interactions together?
No.
Oh, this is my favorite story, I think, is my wife's a photographer, Susan, the great Susan Malchin, and she was shooting this person, and then the mother of the person in her apartment and said, hey, Jay Leno's down the street. Do you want to go down there and look at him? And for some reason, to me, it would be the funniest thing in the world to go down and look at Jay with his head in one of those funny cars or whatever, right?
Right.
We're walking, the woman goes, oh, I love Jay Leno. I said, I don't like Jay Leno. And I start telling her why I don't like Jay Leno. Oh, I think he's... And so now we're walking across the street to the corner where his car is.
Right.
And all of a sudden, my stomach drops. I realize what she's going to do. She makes a beeline for Jay Leno.
Right.
I continue walking under the freeway where I would never walk.
Sure.
Maybe my car broke down.
Right.
Right. She goes, She goes, that guy hates. She tells him that I don't like. He goes, yeah, Andy Kindler. Yeah, man. Yeah, it's okay to hate. It's okay. And then I come back and sheepishly talk to him.
Right. And was nice guy, right?
He was nice. And the other time I introduced him at the Improv, and as he's going on, he goes, it must kill you to do this.
Well, see, this is the thing. He's not dumb. He's not dumb.
No.
He's very smart, very bright. And so he's chosen, and when he was hosting the Tonight Show, he tried very hard to sort of be a nice boss to a lot of people.
That's true. I think somewhat.
Somewhat tried to. And during strikes and stuff, he tried to do all that kind of stuff.
You guys get to have that.
Right. I give him more credit. I do resent, I'm upset that the humor that he decided to use when he was the host of Tonight Show wasn't as sharp as I know he could do.
Right.
And that bugged me. But I wasn't angry about it, but I was disappointed.
How about this? How about that he says he's going to give up the Tonight Show, but knows that he's not going to do it. Right? In other words, he says, I'm going to give it to Conan. I'll give it to Conan. So Conan, they all move their families out here.
Right.
And then, but that's not his plan.
I think this is just I think that he didn't plan not to give it up. I thought he said...
You think it wasn't a conscious thing?
Correct. He says, yes, fine, 5 years from now, it was like 5 years in the future, I will give it up. Conan, I'll be tired by then. And then when you have nothing to do...
Yeah.
And suddenly it's like, oh, you know what would be good if I went to work now? And I can't go to work. And so all that fell
See,
apart.
I thought it was more calculated. I thought it was like he was so angry. I'm going to wait to the last. Oh, you're going to treat me this way?
Right.
Wait till you see what I do.
I don't think so. Now, NBC clearly wanted him back, and they fucked over a very good friend of
Conan.
mine. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's not. And it was a terrible, terrible thing that happened to Conan, and maybe the best thing that ever happened to him.
In what sense do you think? Oh, because he was never going to be a middle of the road.
He created his own show
Yes.
with his own style and has continued to influence generations of kids coming up where he might not have done that if he was I don't think Jimmy Fallon is influencing, numbers of kids growing up, like really sharp comedy kids.
Well,
Conan
I said,
does.
I've every Jimmy Fallon mocking I can do.
Yeah.
It's like when he goes, "That's so great, so great." That means I'm dead inside. But he wanted my number because I was slamming him online, and I think I'm clever. He got my number from my manager and he said, "What's the problem? I love Andy."
Mm-hmm.
And so my manager says, "Hey, then why don't you?" I go, "Yeah, maybe I'll." I didn't call him because I knew what he was trying to do.
Right.
He was trying to make me not slam him.
Right. But do you want to hang on to the anger?
Is it the anger? Am I hanging on to the anger, or am I, in that case, doing the joke?
Or
doing
just
the jokes
keep
I
hanging
want?
on to the truth?
I guess so.
Like,
but
in
I
other
don't
words-
want to defend I just don't want to come out of here defending my rage or fights I've had.
Well, okay. But here's the thing. For me, I'm so uncomfortable when I'm in a fight. I'm so uncomfortable. I would do anything to not be in that fight. And this is true when I'm fighting with my wife or fighting with anybody else.
I do think that generally your approach is right. But you seem to be thinking that you're leaving
Plus, I'm
some
afraid-
honesty on the
I'm afraid
table.
I'm running away from truth.
Yes.
I don't want to run away from honest emotion, which I've probably been doing my whole life. I don't want to run away from, if I'm angry, I'm allowed to be angry.
Well, why don't you do a similar thing that you do with the Sarno thing when you had the back problems?
Yeah.
You know you're angry. You know you want to be angry.
But the thing is, I don't know
what the emotion
what I'm
behind it is?
angry, what I'm angry, if I really am angry.
Well, I think it's because-
I mean, Ryan, producer Ryan, I've lay into him at the end of every show. I just scream at
Every
him.
show?
Every show.
But that seems
I scream
wrong.
at the top of my lungs.
No.
Yes, I know. So, right, Ryan? It's like, I'm sorry about that, by the way. But so
But don't you skip a time?
no, every single time. No, I don't. We've had a working relationship for about a year, and I don't think we've ever had harsh words.
I actually think I've come up with the solution, and the solution is go back into that room when you feel like that you're not expressing the anger.
Right.
Then to me, it's some kind of deeper thing that's either with your parents or with your childhood.
I wasn't allowed to have my own emotions with my parents. This is true.
This will be $300.
And by the way, my dad wrote me a letter. He heard a podcast last night and wrote me a letter upset that he said, I said in the podcast that when I brought people over, he would correct their jokes, which is true. Like when I brought my now wife over, who's a comedy writer, she would say a joke, and he would say, it would be funnier if you said this. It would be funnier if you said that. And he said, that sounds like an asshole would do that. I would never do that. And I said, well, you did. And it wasn't an asshole move. It was just you love humor, you love jokes, and you sort of think you're helping.
It all doesn't necessarily all come back to our parents, but much of it does come back to our parents.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. It doesn't necessarily,
But it is.
but it probably is.
Yeah.
So what you have to do is grieve for that.
Yes.
I think.
All right. Why?
And I'm good. And the reason why I'm saying this is because I just finished the greatest book I've ever read, and I said that before about other books. But Moon Zappa's book is unbelievable.
Earth to Moon. It's fantastic.
Yes, and she talks about grieving.
Yes.
And healing, grieving, and something else never goes away.
Yeah.
But she's a big believer in.
She is. She's
grieving.
very smart.
Yes.
She's very passionate, and she's been through a lot of trauma, and she's trying to make the best of it.
To me, it's unbelievable. But you relate to it. Like I thought my dad was the famous person in my family because he was so funny.
Right.
I didn't know he wasn't Frank Zappa.
Right.
But so we all have that thing where was your dad your hero?
Yeah, for sure.
Was your mom? So I am very free to talk about these things
Right.
since my mom and dad have passed.
Right.
So I think it's harder when they're alive.
Right, but she's right behind you. The ghost of your mom is right behind you, and she's not happy.
What?
She's not happy. She gets very angry. She's very angry.
But that's what I think. I think it's always going to be problematic when you're saying something on a podcast and you're.
But I've had conversations with them directly about this kind of stuff. So it's not like when I was 30, I was in therapy, and when I was 30, I took my dad to lunch, and I said, these are the things that bothered me when growing up. And I've had discussions with my mom about similar things.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. And when I got back, it wasn't like, oh, I'll change or I'm different. I'm sorry. It's an apology. I'm sorry it hurt you. I'm sorry that bothered you.
From Arnie?
Yeah.
How about your mom?
Oh, she wouldn't give me the time of day. No, I don't remember what my mom said. I think my mom would argue a little bit more that what I'm remembering isn't what she remembers.
Was she a maternal mom?
In what way?
Like a mom. My mom was not maternal in any way.
If maternal means nurturing and means caring and means, then yeah, she had plenty of that. And she was a big cheerleader for me and a rooter and saying, you can do anything kind of thing.
Except here's the thing. I thought until I got into therapy and realized that I thought I had some of those same things.
Right.
But I realized, no, my mother was severely depressed. She wasn't mothering me in any way. I went to my aunt's.
But she had to take care of herself.
Yes. I'm not blaming her in case I do feel her hovering. I'm not blaming. Look, Joan. Don't aggravate me, Joan, in the afterlife.
Right.
So, but I didn't. That you understand. I remember this one thing when I was a little kid and she was playing a birdie game and she goes, I'm the birdie. I remember it because it was an exception.
Yes.
I remember when I went to the hospital to have my eyelid reconstructed, she was nice. I remember them because they were exceptions.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So, and not to put my mom down because I love my mom, but you have to, if you don't realize it, then you just, then you
and
can't
also
get
realize
access
where they came from and where they grew up and how their childhood was that made them the kind of person they are. And they're doing the best they can with what they were given.
My mother's mother was
just like Jay Leno.
My mother's mother was a monster in many ways.
Yeah.
So, she really did a number, and as monstrous as my parents I thought could be, nothing like that.
Right.
Nothing like that.
My mother's mother was Jim Belushi, and that could not have been easy.
But the thing that you're saying is, of course, true. If I'm going to remain angry at Jay Leno forever, then I'm not getting the lesson of life.
Right. I also don't want to diminish your bright light. And part of your bright light is getting mad about stuff that's kind of stupid. Like, honestly, is getting really furious at stuff that most of us don't care about. Yes. And it's like, I saw that special last night and they would, that song that they sing, it's like, you get mad and it's very funny.
And then Josh is like, what are you upset about?
Correct. But I mean, but you do this not only on the show, like it's part of who you are.
Yes.
And it's glorious. It's glorious.
Okay, I accept that gift.
All right.
Because now I don't have to, because part of it when I'm reading the thing beforehand, I have to saying, I am a terrible person and I need to, at the end of the hour, say I'll never get angry again.
No.
And that's not what you're saying.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I envy your comfort, your ability to be your true self and not feel horrible about it, not feel anything but, righteous in many ways. And that's great. So that's great. And yes, not to the extent where you want to hurt people's feelings, but we're talking about people that you don't know and you're not going to hear, they're not going to hear this. You just get to have your opinion about stuff.
Yes.
And if people put the work out in public, they're asking for it. Well, they are. They're asking. Yeah. I am out here doing a podcast. If somebody has an issue with it, they can write me at dbawjk@gmail.com and tell me, Jake Hogan, you're full of shit. And I will read the email and I will respond to it. I'm going to now switch over to what we like to call question time.
It's question time.
All right. So these are questions that I put out into the internet. I said, Andy Kindler is going to be on my show. And then
how does he do this? He's on, it's unbelievable. You care about this show.
I do. I put a lot of work into this show.
And I'm hoping this show is the one that gets me going.
This is finally going to
revives my career.
This is going to kick off your career. That's not revive.
Revive my second act, my third act.
Okay.
I like to say that I don't have a career because it's fun to me to say that, but then that's also self-deprecating, can also be a way of avoiding.
Right, because you've been a very successful stand-up comedian. You've done acting. You've done things. I was a guest on your pilot of a talk show you did.
I know you have these questions. Yeah. That was the greatest thing that Jay ever did. What a wonderful thing that he would do this thing on his own, like help me make a pilot. I still remember how hilarious it was, because I was saying, now it was a show business show, how to be in show business. So he give me some tip. Now, for example, Jay, you're related to someone in show business, so it's easy. And you said, yes, absolutely. You just call a show. You say, tell the show that you're in and your father, and then you go, you look up the show.
Sure.
You call up Dr. Quinn, medicine woman. I love medicine. I love that. And anybody can get into show business.
Yes, it was
And
great.
I remember it to this day.
Yeah, that was a great show.
Yeah,
Beth Einhorn brought me in.
Beth
That was
Einhorn.
Lovely Beth Einhorn. So this is, I asked, what question should I ask? And a guy named J. Elvis Weinstein said, let me know if you figure it out.
Yeah, because what he's saying is that there's nothing, he hasn't seen this life of wanting to answer questions. He
Right.
sees me as the anger of the questions, but I just felt like, was it getting into a shtick like viewer mail, I guess is
Yeah.
what it was. But also that I couldn't see the things that but I'm going to change it because you said you liked them. So
I do like it. World Class Andy says, ask Letterman stories.
Oh, okay. Letterman story, this is a good one, is Letterman, when I almost killed myself on my back, I was on a pogo stick at the toy fair, and I went on my back, almost broke my back, and then they had workman's comp, and my mother goes, don't go to Letterman for workman's comp. Mom, I was actually on the job, right? Letterman kept saying every time he see me, you're going to sue. You have to sue us. You're going to sue us, right? Please sue. So much so that other producers were upset by the fact that he kept doing that.
Right.
The other thing is, I rarely got to speak to him because it was like I'm one and done.
Right.
But one time during when I'm showing the video thing from the field piece, I would have talks to him. So I said, hey, how you doing, Dave? I could drop dead any moment.
He's an interesting cat.
And I was there when all the stuff with his, I was there at the show before the show where he talked about the thing that happened with the guy blackmailing him and all that.
Yes, that was scary.
Yeah, it was scary.
He was very nice to me when I was growing up. He was very nice to me, David Letterman.
That's so cool.
Because I used to hound him. I used to go to the Comedy Store when I was like 15, 13 years old and just watch comedians. And David was an outstanding comedian. And then he wound up working on a show my dad was working on. And so I would like hover in the hallways and hang out, try to like knock on the doors. Hey, like, he doesn't know me, and he doesn't want like the 13-year-old kid hanging around. And he and Maron Marco were riding together, and they were both adorable to me.
Yeah,
so nice,
so cool,
so nice.
Meryl's great. I love Meryl.
Yeah, the best. And I've always had a soft spot on in my heart for Dave.
David was never anything but wonderfully nice to me.
So one viewer wants to know, tell me something horrible about Phil Rosenthal. No one says horrible things.
Okay, here's the thing. Phil Rosenthal, it doesn't happen all the time. He's the nicest guy in the world, but he has sucker punched me 3 times.
Really?
No, I can't. If I had anything negative to say about
see that.
Phil,
I honestly would like to see a physical altercation between you and Phil Rosenthal. That'd be fantastic.
I think he might be too. I think he's too Jewish. Maybe I'll say that. Because sometimes
that's tall talk from you,
and I'll do the voice back to I do this and the thing with that. And that's more Jackie Mason. No, I haven't seen his Achilles heel. Maybe his Achilles heel is his Achilles heel.
Do you miss the state of the industry speeches that you gave?
I don't miss the doing of them because they were hell. Every year they were hell, and they were very unpleasant to do. But I am and I'm glad I stopped doing them.
Right.
But I do realize it's if that's the only thing I would be remembered for, I wouldn't be upset about it.
Yeah, people looked forward to that all the time. Everybody did.
Yeah,
it was great, and I can understand why it's difficult because you've got a reputation to uphold, and it's you want to be funny, you want to be in the moment, you have to do work and observe the industry. Actually, it was a lot of work, but for those of us who it was no work at all, we enjoyed it immensely.
Well, that's the same thing now. I mean, I have gone to Austin, but there's a part of me that's like, I don't necessarily have to go traveling. I don't necessarily have to go anywhere. I know I can do it too much of fear of COVID, so I want to get over that a little bit. But there's nothing like I'll give you a perfect example of something that Moon talks about. Gary Goldman, who I think is an amazing comic.
Fantastic.
I see Gary Goldman and he's doing the show and he's got a book and and this is right from Moon's thing. I start to get a little jealous. you use that jealousy. What that meant was, I need to get back out to the clubs.
Right.
I need to make another album. Not need to prove I'm a good person, but to fulfill myself.
And I oddly enough, I just spoke to Gary Goldman 2 days ago, and you know what he says? I'm not falling down enough. So everybody's jealous about everybody else's things.
The grass, the injury is always
He's greener,
right,
bloodier, whatever
bloodier
it is.
from the other side.
Gary Goldman's fantastic. I love him dearly. Now it's time for the moment of joy.
A moment of joy.
What gives you joy? What's something that on a regular basis you can just muster up and say, I want to feel joy right now? What would you do?
I think it is from listening to podcasts right now and listening audiobooks.
Yes.
I have not been able to read for many years because of the ADHD.
Right.
I just don't get, I can read a New Yorker article, as Josh says, I'm always trying to brag that I read the New Yorker, but I can't read it. And so as soon as I got into audiobooks.
Well, you're not reading the famous New Yorker, that magazine. You're reading something called the New Yorker.
Yeah.
And it's big print. It's mostly puzzles. It's mostly puzzles.
But I like it.
It's very nice. It's like highlights, but for smaller kids.
But I would never have read Moon's. I read her other book, but I would have just stopped reading if it hadn't been for audiobooks. So I would say audiobooks more than podcasts.
Okay.
But because if you have OCD, you sometimes have to get out of your mind.
Right.
So it does bring me, now everything that brings joy can also be tiring after a while.
Yes.
So, and I have to say to myself, I don't like the audiobooks anymore. Take a break, do something else. So
great podcast I can recommend is The History of Rock and Roll in 500 Songs. Unbelievable. Joyous, fantastic.
Is it on Ryan? Is it one of Ryan's
It's not one of
groups?
Ryan's shows. Ryan has a good show. Ryan has Phil's show. Phil's The Naked Lunch is one of the, and I love that podcast.
That's from Salt and Straw too?
It's Straw Hut Media. It's a terrible name. Straw Hut.
How
Not
about
Straw Hat.
Straw Man would be good. That would be good,
Straw
right?
Man Media would also be good. It's not named that. It's Straw Hut. All right. So your audiobook now is, when you say ADHD, so I sound a little dyslexic. So to me, listening to books saves me time because reading takes forever.
Right. That's what it is.
I have to go slowly through the words and the spelling in order to get the full meaning of the thing before I fall
And
asleep.
the ADHD just makes me impossible after a couple of pages.
That's terrible.
So it's not dyslexia, but it is that my mind goes blank every 7 seconds.
Yeah, but that's
which
not,
I think you've witnessed that here.
No, not really.
Not really.
You've
You know why? Because this is such a goddamn good podcast.
Exactly.
That
We're
you
on
can't
it.
keep your mind off of it.
I'm a great host. I'm on you. I don't let you fall away. You're secure in my arms like a baby. Right?
You know, it's really true, because you're not, this is in a certain level, this is a no nonsense situation.
Yeah.
I came here, I was going to joke with Jay Kogan. Hey, holiday parking.
Right.
He doesn't have any of it. Of course it's holiday parking. It's a goddamn holiday. You get up here and it's like,
It's Tisha B'Av, by the way. We're filming this in Tisha B'Av.
He's very nice, but we're getting to the show. We're not going to be loudly gagging for 20 minutes.
Right, that's right. I'm a harsh taskmaster.
No, but the thing is, you have focus, the focus that Thought Spiral lacks.
Yeah, I care very deeply about that, but so does, you don't, but Josh seems to care very deeply.
Well, at least one of us does.
Yes, exactly. Well, I think that wraps it up. I want to say thank you, Andy Kindler.
This was a wonderful time.
I love you. I've loved you for years. I'm so happy that I have your actual information now, because I haven't apparently for years.
That must have been in your mind. You can't help but think he's avoiding me.
Yes.
I mean,
I said it actively. I wrote Josh and said, is there a problem between Andy and me that I don't know about? Because you're famous for your feuds, so I figured maybe there was a feud about me. I didn't know.
But did you eventually text me? Or
Yes.
did I? Oh, okay. Because then I went and found all the emails.
I got emails, and Josh actually gave me the incorrect email, so I don't know. Maybe he doesn't use it much. But anyway, so it took it.
But I'm so happy. I'm so
track
happy.
you down was difficult. Great to see you. Send Susan my love. Brown and I love her too.
I know.
A little bit more than you. That's just how it is.
I'm the bad cop.
And thanks for being here. And thank you, my audience, for being here.
Thank you.
Please write to me at Don't Be Alone with Jay Kogan, or dbawjk@gmail.com with all your suggestions. And I would love
Even
it.
if you loathe him, right?
Especially if you loathe me, and if you have even worse feelings, do it.
Do
but
it.
just check check to see if it's just anti-Semitism.
Yes,
If
because
it's-
that's going around.
If it's just anti-Semitism, I don't need it. But if it's specific to me, I want to hear
Right.
about it. Yeah, I want to hear about it. And please tune in next week. Send this podcast to a friend. Subscribe. Write a good review somewhere. I don't know where the people write good reviews, but I hear other podcasts saying, write a good review.
I just do it on Yelp. If
Yeah,
I go to an
right.
ATM I like, I go on Yelp and go ATM corner of this and that. Excellent.
And share the show if you like it with somebody else.
Yes.
So that I can please make some money off of something.
You have to be able. Why can't a man make a little decent shekel from a situation?
Exactly. I've told producer Ryan says we've already made over
$15.
$15 from this show.
Well,
So
he's raking.
it's-
Look at him. Look how he's dressed.
It's
Raking it in.
It's all starting to roll in.
Yeah.
See you next week and have a good time and don't be alone.
Don't be alone with Jake Hogan.